Tell him about the time we faced him.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the MCU D&T Plus podcast with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson. A moment of silence today because we don't have our Jason Cutter with us today. So I gave a moment of silence there for him, and then did my usual "I'm Jarian Gibson" intro.
I thought you forgot for a minute. I was like, wait, Jarian, you've got to come in now. Jason's not here. So yeah, I mean, everybody listening, Jason's obviously not here today. He's had something come up at the last minute, which took him away from us. But he's here in spirit, and as we said, moment of silence. I like that. It's a nice touch, Jeremy. You caught me by surprise. And we've brought a guest along with us today. We have got Luke Smith from Hydra Collectables coming along. Hello, Luke.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So we're going to get stuck into a conversation with you about you and what you do, and your sort of Marvel background and interests and passions within sort of Marvel and comics and MCU world in a moment, but just to go through the motions like we normally do on a podcast. And the last episode we did with Monty Jarian was, I think, it was a big success, don't you?
Yes, great episode. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I know Monty really enjoyed it as well. He really enjoyed that opportunity to come on and just geek out, basically. And the questions at the end were also really cool, and there's been a lot of good feedback about people really like the questions that Monty threw at you and at us at the end about the comics and some obscure moments from the comics. So that might be something that we revisit on a weekly basis. We might be able to stick some questions. Maybe one of us can come up with some questions for the other two. That might be something fun to do, and then the listeners can jump in on those too. Great episode. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed having Monty on as a guest. So I know that, like I said, Jason's not here, so we would usually catch up with Jason about things that have been going on our social channels. But as he's not here, I'll step in and just say a few things that have been going on the last week or so before we get stuck into Jarian's news segment. Obviously, we've ticked over again on 30,000. I think we're actually on 32,500 followers on the group now. For a group that's only 6 months old, I'm told that that's pretty good. So, that's fantastic. Keep it going. And we're not just about numbers, we're about quality conversations as well. And yes, literally last night, we just finished our 4th quiz.
Yes.
Our 4th live. And Jarian's got a big smile on his face because Jarian's team won again, double champion. So we've been, so Luke, we've been doing, the listeners will know, but we've been doing these quizzes since, probably since March, April time. We've done 4 quizzes now. Last night we done a phase 2 quiz, and we had 3 teams. I had a team, Jarian had a team, and one of our other admins on the page, Barbara, had a team. Jarian's team won again. So he's obviously the captain to be with. When you get put in a team, you want to be in Jarian's team. He's going for the hat trick for the next quiz.
I'll be sure to remember that.
Yeah, definitely remember that. I'll put a good word in for you. So yeah, that's been, we've had ticked over a lot of members. We've had the quiz. There's been lots of good posts, obviously, and we're going to get stuck in with Luke in the conversation. I know we're going to touch on Spider-Man in a little while, but there's still this big wait for this Spider-Man trailer, this No Way Home trailer that we just haven't got yet. And Luke said something a minute ago, and I was like, "Yeah, you are. I'm agreeing with you. We'll come back to that in a little while." The group's been nice and active this week. So, Jarian, on the news, where are we at with the news? What's happening?
Well, first of all, did you get a new shirt?
Yeah, I'm always buying a new shirt.
Yes, that's a nice shirt. That's a nice one.
Yeah, this was, this is another new shirt. I always look for a new one. I'm kind of got about 6 or 7 now, and I'm just going to keep rotating them when we come on.
Nice.
And I did tell you last night in the quiz, didn't I? Also, my wife put out there, she went, let's collect the Deadpool bobbleheads. And I was like, no, what have you done? So now we've got to collect the Deadpool bobbleheads. But t-shirts, bobbleheads, and I've got a trip to the comic store next week for my brother-in-law's birthday. We gave him a voucher, so we're going to the comic store next week. So
nice.
I'll come back with more merch next week. So I'm along there with Adam, just running out of money because I'm spending money on merch.
Mine's on Lego, so.
Yeah. Look, Jarian is a Lego addict. Loves a bit of
That's
Lego.
the best way to be. Lego all the way.
I clicked all the Marvel Lego stuff. I just ordered some more. All the Infinity Saga stuff's coming, and some of the What If stuff is coming now. So
The Daily Bugle set looks amazing.
yeah, I haven't built it yet, but it does. I have the old one and the new one, so I'm looking forward to build that one. I got to build a new area though, because I kind of run out of space for Legos, and I want to build a city even. But I got to build a work area first instead of having Legos everywhere.
You need to do what Will Ferrell's character did in the Lego movie.
Yes, exactly. That's what my son says.
Do you craggle it all together?
No, but sometimes I do because I build it, he breaks them. It's like I just built that. Come on, man.
I'd say one last thing on Legos. We was at the shopping centre yesterday, and in Hamleys, which is a big toy store over here. Also, by the way, it's the first time that the British people outnumber the American people on this show. So,
there you go.
So we was in Hamleys, the toy store over here, and they've got the Lego. It's all the dots, the little single dots, the round single dots. Yep. I don't know, it's probably about 12 inches, but maybe a bit more than 12 inches.
Yeah, the pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, the pictures. Yeah, I thought they were great. Really expensive, but they look really great.
Yeah, you can actually take the 3 Iron Man ones and make a one big one, and you can also do different pictures of them. So
yeah. I noticed that there was the Iron Man one. You could get 3 in one.
Yeah,
like you could do 3 different pictures.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I thought they looked really cool. But then when I looked at the price tag, it was like £120.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's just about 200 Lego dots. So how can it be that expensive? But yeah, never mind. Anyway, yeah, new shirt, new bobbleheads, Legos. Let's go with news. Go on, what you got? All right.
First? So first thing, let's get into Ant-Man 3. So I don't know if you're familiar with the show Schitt's Creek, but the star of that show, Dan Levy, he was spotted in London having dinner with Paul Rudd. So could he be joining the MCU or just a coincidence there?
Okay, yeah.
So, something to keep an eye on. What's that?
I don't know that show. I mean, I know of it, but I don't know much about it.
I know who the guy is. I know of the show, but it's interesting though that he's kind of spotted. And we always say, is where there's smoke, there's fire. So he could be having some kind of role in Ant-Man 3 possibly, or some kind of cameo, something to keep an eye on. We are on basically the pretty much gonna be on the eve of What If on Disney Plus. So the news the past several days has been hot and heavy. So the first one is going to be unused Captain America storyboards will be brought to life in Disney Plus's What If, but for Captain Carter. So any of the unused storyboards from Captain America throughout the MCU, those are going to be used by Captain Carter in her What If episodes.
Nice.
Also, too, Captain Carter will return in season 2, and it's a character that could be in every season. Captain Carter will have a strong relationship with the Watcher and will serve as a driving force throughout the plot. So it sounds like our main hero throughout What If is going to be Captain Carter.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been thinking for a while that they're going to find a way to try and shoehorn Hayley Atwell back into the MCU.
Yep.
Because it was almost like we got a bit of her, but not quite enough. And I know we had Agent Carter, but that's kind of been decanonized a little bit, hasn't it? I don't think they're really going forward with that. And it was like, how can they use, I'm sure they were sort of, you could see that they needed to use this actor more. Let's see on Wednesday how well, she's received. I think it'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep. And then also too, this is interesting as well. So the What If show creator originally pitched Captain Marvel to the MCU before landing the What If series. So he had a Captain Marvel idea. They didn't go with it, but they brought him back for What If.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And then here's one for Chadwick Boseman. This is his last MCU outing with as T'Challa. He will voice 4 episodes. The What If production crew really enjoyed working with him and how he read his lines for the part. They said it was a unique experience, a unique performance, and he read them like it was a play. They said it was an amazing experience, and they read lines with him. He will voice 3 versions of T'Challa in What If. So we already know that we're going to see the Star-Lord What If for T'Challa. I think we're going to see him Black Panther again, but what the other one's going to be, I'm not sure on that one.
Wow, that's cool. That must have been pretty much Chadwick Boseman's last sort of professional job, I should imagine.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know when this was recorded, if I'm totally honest, but you know, couldn't have been that long ago.
Yeah, and maybe with his situation, they got all of his stuff done, you know, before everything else was done, and that's why they're able to have this much content of him in the series. So
yeah, that's great. I think that's going to be really, really emotional for
yes,
for fans to hear that and see that on screen. And I think that's really good that there's been a little bit more. We've managed to catch a little bit more of Chadwick before, you know, his sad death. So that's good news. That's good news. Really looking forward to that. That'd be fun.
And then speaking of T'Challa as Star-Lord, so the rumored first 3 chapters are going to be Captain Carter, T'Challa as Star-Lord, and Loki on Earth. Now, this is not 100% confirmed. This is what's been publicized by the different outlets. There was some conversation in our group that the 3rd episode might be Scarlett Johansson in post-apocalyptic Earth, but we'll see. So don't take this as, you know, gospel. This could change.
I think Captain Carter is definitely Wednesday, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. Captain Carter and T'Challa. There's no argument to wrong those two, but the 3rd episode with Loki on Earth could be something different, and so something to keep an eye on.
Gotcha.
Tony Stark centric sins of the father type episode didn't make the season, but could possibly be seen in season 2. Would explore Tony's relationship with his father, Howard Stark. So I wonder if that's the one that got cut, because we know that it's going to be 9 episodes instead of 10 this season now. And maybe that's one of the ones that got put on the cutting floor because of time.
And talking about that cut down to 9, and I don't think it's going to mean that we're going to get Miss Marvel in that 6-week gap, because nothing's lining up really, is it? They've still not really any promo for it, but it does leave a 6-week gap in between the end of What If and the beginning of Hawkeye. So there is room if they really did want to put it in, but I mean, I think everything's pointing towards Miss Marvel now being
2022.
And to be honest, that would probably be a good thing. Otherwise, we'll have, unless they somehow surprise us with Moon Knight or She-Hulk or Secret Invasion. Then we're not going to get anything from the start of the year until the end of March. So, you know, that would be a way to fill that little gap.
I think it'd be a great way, because otherwise we're waiting until Doctor Strange comes out, and
that's going to seem like forever.
Yep.
If we have to go January, February, and most of March without any new MCU content, that is going to be, you know, there could be some dangerous things going on there.
And speaking of the episode count, like I was saying, so we are going to get 9 episodes. There were supposed to be 10, but 1 got pushed to season 2 due to COVID and deadlines. So season 1 will have 9 episodes. Season 2 will have 9 episodes also. So a total of 18 episodes for the first 2 seasons.
Oh, so they've confirmed 9 episodes for season 2?
That's what's being reported by different outlets. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Usually if several report them, there's something there. So.
I mean, effectively, they have literally got unlimited amounts of stories to be told, hasn't they? They could literally just do anything they want.
It's a testing ground, you know, to see what, if we change this to this, how is it received by the fans, and can we move this on into MCU or make it a live action spinoff? Which, speaking of that, this has also been reported that new characters from MCU's What If could receive live action spinoffs.
You mentioned it last week when you said looking at what they're doing with the Killmonger character. When we was talking to Monty about Black Panther and whether it's a recast or whether it's the redemption arc for Killmonger, and it does seem like they might start just turning the cogs a little bit just to try and change his image a little bit in the eyes of fans from What If. You know, we see him in the trailer saving Tony. So are they just trying to turn him from this? I mean, he wasn't out and out evil, was he, in Black Panther? But he still was the villain. So are they just trying to turn that a little bit towards him being, you know, this kind of maybe reluctant hero at least, just so that, you know, is he coming back in Wakanda forever? Are we going to get that Madam Slay and that sort of he's still alive kind of thing, or he's brought back to life? Or
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I love Michael B. Jordan. I think he's brilliant.
And then last thing regarding What If, there's a new trailer that shows Iron Man murdered. So it does appear that we might be getting an Avengers murder mystery episode.
That'd be interesting. I
Yeah.
like a murder mystery.
Yeah, a good
I
one.
know,
Yeah.
I really do. I love those. I love those type of movies. What did I watch the other day? Knives Out.
Yes, that's a good one.
Knives Out with Chris Evans and just had an amazing cast actually. But yeah, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Did you ever watch The Big Bang Theory?
I have seen it. I haven't watched it all the way through, but I have seen lots of episodes.
So Raj on there would always like randomly pull out a murder mystery type game during the series, and so that would be fun.
Excellent. Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Anything else?
No Way Home. So there's a toy line that teases the Sinister Six and Marvel's multiversal consequences. So again, no trailer, but more toys are coming out with descriptions that are leading to, not really spoiling the movie, but giving us hints at the movie, saying that it will be the Sinister Six and a multiversal consequences. So
Luke, I know you like a bit of Spider-Man, and just linking those 2 points there. We often find, and I dare say you've seen it yourself, that toys, Lego, Funkos, the Legends series, they often hint at what's going on. You've obviously seen the releases of the Funko stuff for No Way Home?
Yeah, I have. As a toy collector as well as comic collector, I actually see this quite a lot. And I really do consider them spoilers, because when you're this engrossed in a subject, particularly like the MCU, whether it be comic books or the movies, you can identify straight away what these things are. So one of the big ones that I saw a few years ago was actually for the Civil War movie, where they made a giant man, Ant-Man figure for the Lego set. And so I was like, well, now I know what's going to happen. I know that Ant-Man is going to become Giant Man. So, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's okay. Something like that, it's not a massive spoiler, but I'm just waiting for that silly release, that one release of a Lego set that has like 3, maybe 4 Spider-Man characters. And then we're going to know.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a couple. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you saw with the Lego that you pointed out a couple of weeks ago, Jarian, that the little bubble on the packaging said, because it had the No Way Home spider suit, didn't it?
Yep.
But then on the little bubble, it said inspired by Homecoming or inspired by Far From Home. So it kind of was a No Way Home set, but it was inspired by, quote unquote, the previous movies. So it's, I think they're really teasing us with this whole Spider-Man No Way Home thing.
And then other piece of No Way Home news is that Deborah Ann Wall spotted with Kirsten Dunst in midst of reported No Way Home reshoots, but Deborah Ann Wall said it wasn't her. Now there is some pictures of one of Kirsten Dunst's friends that looks a lot like Deborah Ann Wall. At first, I was like, either that's her twin or doppelganger or something, because it looked like her to me. But when there's other pictures of her friend, maybe it's not. Who knows? Maybe they're playing coy. I don't know.
It's amazing what lengths fans will go to either prove or disprove something, isn't it? Like, I've seen that picture where they've got the actress and then Kirsten Dunst's mate sitting next to her, like, look, they've got the same mole or whatever.
Yeah.
This is insane. That is absolutely insane. But it's great. I love it. I love this age that we're in, where you can theorize, you can go so deep down a rabbit hole, and I think it's brilliant. It makes me laugh. Like, it really does make me smile.
And speaking of that, it's going to keep happening until we get a trailer. And I know that you're on team no trailer. What's Luke's thought on that one?
Yeah, I'm in pure agreement. I think they should play this really close to the chest. I mean, let's face it, most of the time, by the time we get a second or third trailer, they're revealing too much. So for a movie to go all the way with no trailer whatsoever, that's mind-blowing. That's amazing. And I would be so excited to just go in and watch it completely fresh.
Yeah, and if they were going to do it with any character, surely if they were going to do it with any character in the whole entire superhero / comics world, Spider-Man would be one of those ones that you could probably get away with it the most.
Yep.
If you're talking about the sort of, the biggest comics characters that have sort of ever existed, if you asked just anybody, a random person, they'd probably either give you Superman, Batman, or Spider-Man. They'd probably give you those. I mean, if you went down the route of finding a Marvel fan, they might give you something different or whatever. But if I asked my mum, for example, she'd probably say Superman, Batman, or Spider-Man, So you could probably, if they could get away with it with somebody, and on a film of this, I mean, everyone kind of knows what's happening anyway. Like, well, actually, I'll say that we think we know what's happening. So if you're going to get away with it on one film, this could be it. And I agree with you. You know, you imagine not having a trailer and going into the cinema and sitting down and just going, I have no idea what's going to happen. That would be insane.
And I'm agreeing with you guys too. I don't think we're gonna get a trailer. I think we haven't gotten one yet. We're not gonna get one. I think they're playing things close to the chest, and I could see like a teaser thing where they show like maybe Peter Parker or him in the Spider-Man suit in like a title sequence type of thing. That's about it. But I don't think if we get anything, it's gonna be anything too revealing. It's gonna be a quick teaser, and that's probably about it if we get something.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else?
A little bit more than we've done. Eternals, latest trailer shown during the Olympics says only in theaters. So it sounds like Shang-Chi and Eternals, unless something changes anytime soon, both of them will be only in theaters. Wow.
Because I know that a lot of our members over in the Philippines, the theatres aren't open over there, are they, at the moment? I mean, I know we're still 3 or 4 weeks away from Shang-Chi, and obviously a few months away from Eternals, so things could change. But, you know, I don't know what they're going to do in that corner of the world. But, I mean, do you know what, for me, I went to see Black Widow in the cinema, and I would go see Shang-Chi in the cinema, regardless of how it was released. So... yeah, that's cool. It avoids all this other problems as well that's kicking up recently, which we won't go into.
Nope. Moving on.
just for Luke's benefit, we get well clear of that last week. We spent about 2 seconds talking about it last week anyway. But moving on, and Jarian's like, that's it, we're done. Let's go.
All right, Black Panther 2. Mabel Cadena has joined the cast as Namora, the cousin of Namor. She is also a Mexican actress, so it's going more with that thought of Atlantis will be tied to Mayan culture. Like I've been saying now for a couple episodes about Black Panther 2 and Namor.
And we've got, go on, pronounce the name, because I can't pronounce it. The guy that's going to be playing Namor.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to do that again. I don't want to butcher his name.
We don't want to butcher anybody's name.
Yeah.
But so we've got him again of you know, from that area of the world as well. So yeah, he's looking very much like that, isn't it? So that's good.
This is not necessarily MCU, but it's MCU related. So the latest Free Guy promo. So Ryan Reynolds' new movie. There's more Deadpool references in the promo. Taika Waititi, is he foreshadowing Deadpool and Thor: Love and Thunder? You know, because there's some connections there because they're both in that movie, Free Guy. We've seen Corgan Deadpool. The latest promo shows the big beefy guy from Free Guy now talking about the Deadpool. He can't fit into the costume anymore. What's going on there? There's definitely some breadcrumbs being laid out that possibly Love and Thunder might be, you know, Deadpool's first intro to the MCU. Maybe like some kind of teaser or some kind of breaking the fourth wall type thing quickly. Nothing too major I could see, but I could see like all of a sudden we see Deadpool pop out and say something, and that's it in that movie.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be a fun movie. I mean, just by the title card, it looks like it's going to be, again, along the same lines as Ragnarok, where it's kind of not taking itself too seriously, but got those kind of fun, you know, those fun tones to it. So yeah, I mean, if he's going to, it might be something like that. Just going on for a little while, and I'm gonna you know, bring Luke into this conversation, see what he thinks about this. But I've just read God of Thunder, The God Butcher. So I just read that with Gore's intro. This, you know, the story. It was what's the writer's name? Jason Aaron.
Yep.
Jason Aaron. Yeah, Jason Aaron. He's run with, and I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed the flipping between 893 AD or whatever it was, or BC, and then the present day, and then the thousands of years in the future. I really enjoyed that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Gore on screen. And I was really trying to, as I was reading it, I was really trying to picture Christian Bale's face on, like, as Gore, and then his voice speaking as Gore, and the brutality is amazing. I hope they catch that. I hope, you know, I know I was just saying about those fun tones and that kind of comedic element that we saw in Ragnarok, but I do hope that they capture some of that, you know, like I say, brutality. You know, what I mean. Obviously, Luke, you'll be familiar with that. What do you think about that kind of going with those comedic tones for Love and Thunder as with Ragnarok, but introducing some of that Jason Aaron, you know, style and gore, basically, for gore.
Yeah, I think that they both complement each other. I think if you can be the two sides of the same coin and have this joy and laughter and humor, and then have that darkness, it really brings people straight back down to earth once it flips. And I think that this is the film to do that. I mean, if they are going to go along with the female Thor storylines, that's already quite a dark subject matter. That's already quite a dark story. And so to then tap into that with, like you say, Gore, who I, for one, absolutely adore this character. Gore the God Butcher is one of the best modern day villains that has ever been created. And I can't wait to see him in this film. And yeah, if it's anything to go by, maybe we might even get 3 separate Thors for this movie if they're going up against Gore. And obviously, everyone has their theories on who it might be. Will we get Beta Ray Bill? Will we get someone else? We don't know. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of the first 2 Thor movies, but Ragnarok really did bring me back. And now Thor is one of my all-time favorite characters. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I think the darkness and the humor will really complement each other.
Nice. Like you say, that flipping back and forward from this kind of silly, goofy side of Thor to that really serious, dark, you know, he's in, you know, in peril, you know, up against this absolute savage who's got nothing, you know, there's no, well, there is a reason for it, isn't there, in the comics? I know there's a reason for doing what he's doing, and they do explain that. And if anybody wants to read it, I don't want to ruin it. But he's kind of very sort of tunnel vision, isn't he? He knows what he wants to do, and that's it. Like,
Yep.
He doesn't flirt about anything. He's like, you know, a friend of mine always used to make jokes about, like, when you see a villain that they're so powerful, like, why don't they throw people across a room? Why don't they just chop their head off, like, straight away? Like, why don't they play with them? You know, and in the comic, I was reading that, I never got the feeling that Gore was playing with Thor at the top or with anybody. He was just trying to kill him. Like, that's it. You know? And I like that. I like that about a villain. It really makes it real, doesn't it? You know? Obviously, how real can you get with Thunder Gods and, you know, and things like that. But, you know, it makes it real within that scenario. So, yeah, cool. Cool. Anything else, Jarian, before we go?
Yeah, a few more things and I'll be done. Short things here. So Miss Marvel, there's a new costume pic displaying an unfamiliar power. It shows her left forearm surrounded by purple crystallized light. So it does seem like they are giving her new powers in the MCU. It will be interesting to see, or maybe that's just when she changes and grows and expands. Maybe that just happens. I don't know yet, but it looks like she might have a new power.
Was that something that they brought in the game? Was that in the game?
I don't think so. It's the only thing.
I've not played the game, but I can't. I'm sure I might have seen that before, and it might have been in the game, or was it on something else? I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't her. But yeah, maybe I haven't played the game, so I can't speak to it. But okay, cool. Okay.
And then there's a Miss Marvel tie-in comic. It was supposed to come out September 15th, but now it's not coming out until December 1st. So there was a tie-in comic to the show. We know the show's had rumors of delay. Now the comic for the tie-in is getting delayed. So it does confirm, pretty much confirm for me that we're not getting Miss Marvel until 2022 early. So
speaking of that, then, Luke, in that respect, these tie-in comics that tie in with the movies, in your experience, do you find that they are quite telling in regards to like when they're released, to when the movies are released?
My biggest problem with these tie-in comics to the movies is that they don't trust the audience enough to stick with their knowledge of what they already have. So, for example, again, going back to Civil War, when that came out, we ended up with Civil War 2 in the comic form. And yeah, I don't like that. I feel like they should trust people to go back to the back issues and everything else. As it stands, just with these tie-in issues, using like Masters of the Universe as an example, which I know isn't a Marvel property, it didn't really, it was all exposition. It didn't really need to be there. So I don't know. I'm in two minds of it. I can see why they do it. I can see from a marketing point of view why they do it to bring people on board. But some stuff you just got to trust your audience to go back into the history.
Yes.
So within our Facebook group, we've got lots of different levels of. I say no, actually, let's scrap that. We've got lots of fans. We've got lots of fans, and they've all got different knowledge bases. You know, we've got some fans who are, you know, avid comic collectors, readers, have been for, you know, since the sort of 70s and 80s. We've got some guys in their 50s and 60s in our group, so people that have you know, grown up with these characters and all of that, and who now are into the MCU. We've got other people. We've got very, very, very young audience on the Facebook group. You know, kids, you know, 16, 17-year-old kids who grew up with watching the Superhero Squad cartoons and Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You know, we're talking about kids who were 6 when Iron Man came out, you know. And then we've obviously got fans who are sort of, you know, in their sort of 20s and 30s and 40s who are only MCU fans and they don't go back to read the comics. I'm wondering whether the tie-ins, the comic tie-ins, are a way to try and transition an audience that is purely MCU based towards comics as well. I don't know whether that's part of their kind of their thinking. You know, they've kind of gone, well, look, this is a tie-in comic to the movie. This will give you a bit of backstory. Go and read this comic. And they read the comic and they go, oh wow, I really enjoyed reading the comic. Let me read more comics.
I can see that, but I can, from experience, I also know that it does more harm than good, because we're now living in a world where the MCU movies are influencing the comics that they are supposedly based on. And so even characters such as like Tony Stark, for example, he now looks like Robert Downey Jr. in the comics and behaves the same way as that character would, or as the actor would play him. And, you know, I've been in a shop where a kid's come in and they've just seen Infinity War and they go, I want to read the Infinity War saga, the, you know, Infinity Gauntlet. And the shopkeeper's handed it to them and they flick through it and they've gone, this isn't what I know. You know, kids can't relate to this stuff anymore. And yeah, I've done topics myself on my own channel, which I won't get into, but I've spoken about how there is no relatability to the new audience with these older characters and what sort of knock-on effect that's going to have on the comic book community moving forward. Because it doesn't, you know, for a lot of kids, for example, Miles Morales is their Spider-Man and they don't care about Peter Parker. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves and changes in the next 50 to 100 years. The older comics, probably going back, well, probably into before the 80s, I should imagine, 80s and before, they can be, I wouldn't say difficult to read, but I mean, actually, no, they're easy to read. The newer ones, no, they're not easy to read. Sorry, hold on a minute. The new ones are very easy to read.
Yes.
The older ones are just normal, but because the new ones are so easy to read, it makes the old ones seem hard to read. And you know what a lot of youngsters are like these days? They're like, I just want to, you know, big explosions and see pictures. Not all of them, you know, granted, you know, I'm not going to pigeonhole every, you know, millennial, but, you know, everything's sort of convenience, isn't it? We want it quickly, we want it now, you know, hence why we can watch Infinity War or the Infinity Saga and, you know, we can see that whole story play out, or we can go back and read about 200 comics to see it, you know, play out. But no, I totally get your point about that being totally unrelatable. But we're kind of slowly catching up. I think the MCU, and as you say, it's not only catching up, it's almost overtaking. And
I think a large part of it as well was when those films were made, take like Age of Ultron, for example, they didn't own the rights to use all the characters that would have been in that original comic. And so the story got changed anyway, and new characters were brought in to replace. So again, I can see why kids would pick up the comic and say, well, this is not relatable to me, I don't want it. But yeah, I feel like it's such a shame. Maybe the What If series will help fix a lot of that. Or maybe, you know, in a couple of decades' time, we'll get a complete reboot of everything with Disney now owning every single character, and we'll get some of these stories played out more in line with those comics.
Cool. All right. Jarian, what we got? We got any last news pieces?
Speaking of books, Marvel is releasing My Mighty Marvel first books for the youngest Marvel fans. So that looking forward to. You mentioned Agent Peggy Carter earlier. So there is now a Marvel Legends episode for her, but it ignores the TV series. It focuses on MCU related content. So I think that pretty much puts the nail in the coffin that those TV shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter are not MCU canon.
You forgot Inhumans.
Don't even mention Inhumans again. Moving on. Deadpool 3. So Deadpool 3 here. Ryan Reynolds has opened up. He wants Disney to go wild with MCU's Deadpool. A quote from him says, "I think both are pretty warranted. I think you're always going to zig when everybody's expecting you to zag when it comes to that character. As long as Disney's open to doing some pretty wild divergent or having some wildly divergent uses of Deadpool, then I dig it, man. I think it's all great." He's also hinting at a production date for 2022 for Deadpool 3. I hope they continue what they built with Deadpool. He's really enjoyable. The only thing I'm bummed about with Deadpool though is that there was that article that said that Taskmaster was supposed to be the villain for one of the Deadpool movies, but because of rights issue, they had to change it. And so I almost wonder if Ajax in the first movie was actually supposed to be Tony Masters.
Right, yeah.
In Deadpool. So that's interesting.
Look, Jarian is the biggest Taskmaster fan, so we won't get into what happened in Black Widow because he won't stop. All right, so don't mention it.
I just hope they do Deadpool justice. So I think Moon Knight is going to be, and I said this before, I think Moon Knight's going to be a pretty big indicator of how they're going to do Deadpool and Blade in some of those darker series in the MCU, since Moon Knight is probably going to be our first introduction of a dark character like that in the MCU. So that show is going to be a very good indicator. Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Feige have tossed around MCU ideas, but nothing concrete at this time. Johnson says he's currently focused on Black Adam. So are we going to see The Rock in the MCU at some point? Possibly. It'd be interesting to see who they bring him as. I could see Hercules or Conan. I could see him being, the Thing as well, kind of a voice type role, like I'm going blank here. Fast and Furious. What's that?
Like Vin Diesel doing the voice type role.
Yes, like Vin Diesel doing Groot. I could see him doing a voice role, but I saw Luke was kind of so. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think he's too big for that. He's too big of an actor. Like, he's a leading man, so I don't see him being part of a quartet. I don't see him being one of those Fantastic Thor. I think he should be Galactus.
Ooh,
Oh.
I like that. I like that a lot.
With the purple helmet.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, nice, wicked. I like that. I don't mind that idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I know nothing about Black Adam. He's like the black version of Superman, isn't he?
Yeah, you could say he's kind of like Shazam in a way as well, kind of the opposite of Shazam a little bit. But yeah, kind of like a Zod-like character maybe. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this.
So he's not. But he's a hero. He's not a villain.
No, he's a hero,
and he's not an anti-hero. Deadpool style or like that. He's a hero.
Yeah.
Right.
And you saw Shazam, right? The movie Shazam.
Yeah.
So at the end, the open chair that was kind of crushed. Yeah. That was his chair. If I'm not wrong, not mistaken, that was his chair.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So anyway, my point being was, well, let's have him play a villain.
Yeah. I like that. I like Galactus. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Two more things and we're done with the news. Moon Knight's news here. Agent Sharon Carter, aka the Power Broker, Emily Van Camp, is rumored to appear in Moon Knight. So
that's interesting. I'm still glad that she's a Skrull, or she was a Skrull in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was just like that character. I mean, I see that they tried to build.
The Mystique angle works for me. I think they could make her off being Mystique. I don't know.
Yeah, they could. I don't know whether they're going to go that way yet.
Yeah.
They've got X-Men in their back pocket that they can pull out in a couple of years' time. I don't know. I just think with the whole, if you look at the cast of, or the way they're going with Secret Invasion, the fact that Fury's in it, and it's going to be that kind of Shield based, the spies and that level of character. She fits in with that level of character, and they did say the writers of Falcon and Soldier that it would lead into. I think they said it would lead into like 3 other MCU projects.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know whether that included Black Widow with the Val connection, because obviously Black Widow should have come out before it. I'm not sure whether that would. But I think that why not Secret Invasion? She's a Skrull. She acted so out of character. I know that they tried to write in there a reason as to why she was treated badly or whatever, but I don't know. That was weak, if you ask me. When you base it on what her character was before and what she would do, she was almost like a mini cat, weren't she? She's like, I will do the right thing regardless. This is going to get me fired. I'm still doing the right thing. I just don't know. It just didn't seem right to me. So I'm still going with the fact that she's a Skrull.
Yeah, I agree too. I think it leans more towards a Skrull. It'd be interesting to bring her in as Mystique, but I think it's a Skrull. I also think too that she's not really the power broker, because she was reporting to somebody that we don't know on the phone. We saw that in the docs, and we saw that after she got her pardoned and reinstated at the end. So she's working with somebody.
That's a bit of a red herring sending us on the route that she's the power broker. I don't believe that.
Yeah. And the last bit of news is that Werewolf by Night is rumored to be in the works.
Nice. I don't know much about that, but that sounds cool.
This is going to be another Moon Knight tie-in. So
yeah, I mean, they've obviously they're going down that hole that we've had that mention of vampires in by Mobius.
Yep. Vampires, Titans, and Kree.
Yeah, we've got Blade, coming up at some point. So they're delving into that world. Obviously, we've got Morbius, which I know is in the Sony universe, but that's coming soon. So there's little hints there, isn't there?
Yep. So that's all the news, and that's a week's worth of news from our last episode. So a lot of stuff that came out. The big news was What If, because with What If being, basically the Eva What If, it's all kinds of hot and heavy news on that one. So
excellent. Right. Okay. So I know we've spoken to you a little bit, Luke, but this is your time to shine, mate. So like I said, anybody listening or watching, we've got Luke Smith with us today. So Luke, you run Hydra Collectables. Give us a little bit more about yourself and your kind of Marvel story.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Luke from Hydra Collectables, where we let our geek flag fly, and you can find me on both YouTube and Instagram. I do have the other social medias, but I don't really use them all that much. So those are the 2 main places. And I just love anything that's geeky. So it's not just the MCU, although that is a massive part of my life. Like you guys know, I'm primarily Spider-Man. And for me, it started very early on, back in 1994, where Blockbuster Video was doing a free promo where they were giving out packs of Flair Marvel trading cards when you rented a movie. And I was instantly hooked. And so back at the back here, I've even got a little setup of Blockbuster Videos where I've actually labeled them all as the MCU movies.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's crazy. Just interjecting just for a moment there. Monty said last week that he got into the MCU with the trading cards, didn't he? Am I imagining?
Yep.
He said that. Wow, that's incredible. 2 guests in a row, both trading cards, have really got you into it. That's brilliant. Anyway, carry on, Luke. Sorry.
Yeah, so then once I started getting some of these cards from Blockbuster Video, I obviously wanted to get some more. So that brought me to my first comic book shop. And being a little bit of a wheeler dealer as a lad, I started raiding the 20p box and started just buying loads of comics, which I would then take into school and sell for a profit in order to go back and buy the cards that I wanted. So from a very early age, I was wheeling and dealing and trading in comics. And then over the years, I've dipped in and out. I've left comics and I've come back. I did really jump into The Walking Dead because my background, my previous job was a special effects artist. So I used to make monsters for a living. And working with things like The Walking Dead and stuff like that, I really drew into that. And then Stan Lee passed away, and it really hit home and made me realize that the one thing that really drew me to comics in the first place was, of course, these cards, and primarily Spider-Man. So I set out to get a Spider-Man collection, an ASM collection. So I sold all of my other stuff and I started, and now I'm just 2 issues away from completion.
Wow. So how many is that then, Luke? So like I said before, we've got a lot of our listeners have got different knowledge bases and different areas of interest. Some are into comics, some aren't. some adjusting to MCU, etc., etc. So we might have some people who have absolutely no idea about comics. So roughly how many is the
so the numbering system for Spider-Man comics is all over the place. We've started with number ones various times throughout the years, but I believe that the legacy number, as it were, is somewhere within the 800 to 900s at the moment. So we're fast approaching that 1,000 mark. Obviously, I have various volumes because, again, they've done different volumes, always kind of retracting back to volume 1. But yeah, I do actually own everything apart from these 2 books, and of course they are issues number 1 and 2. So
Oh, wow.
Right, okay, gotcha. I was watching I think I mentioned it on an episode a couple of weeks ago, an episode of The Pawn Shop where a guy took the first appearance of Spider-Man into the pawn shop, and the guys were saying that I think the guy wanted $60,000 for it, and basically they got their specialist in, and he said, this isn't really worth anywhere near that because of the quality of it, etc., etc. And they wanted to offer him, I think they wanted to offer him 13 or something like that. I can't remember exactly. I think it was like 13,000. And he said no. He said the lowest I'm going to go is 20. And the guy said, well, I can bring it up to 14, but that's it. And then the bloke went no, and he walked away with it. But they did mention on there that there was one. Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong. You may know, but went for like $1 million or something like that. Like that issue with Spider-Man in it, and I was like, you're kidding me? It's just some paper. That's incredible.
It's really exploded within the last year and a half. I think this pandemic really did drive the market. All of this that I've collected, I might add, was only after Stan Lee passed away. So it's only been about 2 years. So I've managed to gain this entire collection, bearing in mind that I no longer work. I'm a stay-at-home dad. So I only made this collection by selling my other collections to pay for it. And I was just very lucky that I bought them at the time that I did, because all of them have skyrocketed since.
Right. Okay. Blimey. Well, yeah. Fair play to you. Then that's a huge collection. And something that I'm gonna. This is off piece to now. This wasn't a question that I wanted to ask you actually, but I'm going to ask you just because I keep seeing it and I'm like, I want to know more about it. And with comics, I think you have in the background there. You've got some slabs, quote unquote. That's what they call them when they press them in between the plastic. Yeah.
Yep. That's what they call them.
Explain that number to me in the top left-hand corner.
So that number is the grading number. I will point out that I don't slab my books for the grade. Everything that I've slabbed because it was important to me and I wanted to display it. So whether it's on the wall here or in the rack there, it means that they're protected and they're nicely covered. That number that you're seeing basically equates to the condition of the book and therefore the value. So a 9.8 or sometimes above would be considered the highest grade that you could have, and therefore that book is of the highest value that it could be. But in all honesty, most of my Spider-Man collection is low to mid grade, and to be honest, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
So 10 is as high as it can go?
10 is as high as it can go, and it's very rare. Like a 9.8 is your standard, top mark.
Gotcha. Okay. And I mean, I've kind of got a feeling from what I've sort of done some very basic research myself, and just based on what you've just said there, that quote unquote slabbing is maybe looked down upon a little bit within the community, or am I wrong there, or am I touching on something? I don't know.
So what slabbing does with the community, if you're going to sell your books, slabbing is the best way to go, because once you've got that number imprinted on that book, there's no arguments, there's no discrepancy between the two people involved in that transaction. And so you can just look it up online and go, that's fair market value, that's what it's selling for, this is how much it's worth. And there's no argument to be made. Now, obviously, as time goes on, I personally believe that that's going to go out the window, because no two 9.8s are ever going to be the same. One's going to be sun damaged, one's going to be like a miswrap, or be, things that don't necessarily affect the grade, but do change the appearance of the book. And I feel that with so many people slabbing these modern books and getting the 9.8s, within 10, 15 years, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference.
It's going to mean nothing. Right, gotcha. Okay. I'll tell you something, it's a little bit less serious than that, man. But Jarian's not only is he a Lego collector, he's a massive Funko collector as well, and he had a bit of a problem, so he had to stop. Right? But I'm probably in the middle of my sort of Funko journey at the moment now. Now, there might be people out there who are going to maybe even turn off and never listen again when I say what I'm going to say next, but I'm going to say it anyway. I take them out of the box because I want to let them fulfill their glorious purpose. Okay, and bobble, and their heads wobbling around. And accidentally the other day, and it was actually an accident, I've got a couple of shelves with mine, actually bumped into the shelf, and it was hilarious because every one of them went like that. Everyone bobbled their head. And I thought this was brilliant. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, you can keep things in the box. You can slab things. You can release things. You can read the comics or whatever. But what my point is trying to get at there is, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to be a collector and to be an enthusiast. I think there's just your way of doing it. You know,
Exactly.
and I think this is kind of where we go, where like Jarian and I and the other admins and people on our group, where we go in regards to people's knowledge sets. You know, okay, you might not have ever read a comic. We don't devalue you because you've never read a comic. You know, I mean, there were some people on our quiz last night who've never read a comic who were unbelievable when it comes to the fine details of the MCU movies. Like, more so than I've ever seen. In fact, there's a couple of people like Hayley. Hayley's never read a comic who was on last night. She's unbelievable. Dana apparently never read a comic. It's just incredible people. These two ladies who were on our quiz last night, Luke, and never read a comic in life, but nailing these fine details of the MCU. And like I say, my point being is that everyone's a fan. That's a fan. And if you collect comics in slabs, if you collect comics in boxes, if you collect 9.8s or 4.2s, if you have Funkos in a box or out of a box or whatever, you're an enthusiast. So come to our community and we'll talk. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
No, absolutely. And just to touch upon what you're saying about your Funko Pops, like, being a toy collector as well, I believe that toys should be played with and comics should be read. And like I say, a lot of these books, I either slab them because they go up on display, or I slab them because they've been so well loved that they are literally falling apart. And I want to protect that book. So I've sent books off knowing that they're going to come back as 0.5s or 1s or 2s, like the lowest that you can get. And I've sent them off knowing that, purely because I want to preserve the memory, preserve the book. Now, I know that there's other books out there. I know that there's multiple copies of certain books. Even something that people think is as rare as an AF-15, I don't believe is all that rare. If you can type something in on eBay.
What is that, Luke? Sorry?
That's an Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. Yeah. If you type that in on eBay, you're going to see at least 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 of them show up. To me, that means it's not a rare book. So that's just my thoughts. That's my theory.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool.
But yeah, toys should be played with, comics should be read. But like you say, people are free to collect however they want, and no one should ever really judge people for that.
I agree. It's there's no right or wrong way. You know, do what makes you happy. You know, do what you want to do. Like with Legos, people say keep the boxes, keep the instructions, you know, all that kind of stuff. Well, I open the Legos, we build them. I don't keep the boxes, I keep the instructions. But it's like if I ever resell these, I'll bag them up. You know, just like in the number bags they should be in, and with the instructions, here you go. I'm not going to keep all the boxes around. But the Funkos, there were some I opened. Like I have the minis that are opened around here somewhere. But like the regular ones, I just put in a closet because I just kept buying so much that I know what to do with them. So I threw them all in the closet, and they've been sitting there for years now. I think I had like the first 300 Marvel Funkos, and I had to stop because I just kept getting every variant, you know, any like glow in the dark, different colors, different stickers, like Target exclusive. What's that one store that you go to? You can buy all kinds of like different shirts and toys. But
Hot Topic.
Yes, Hot Topic exclusive. You know, I just bought a bunch and threw them in the box, and I left them in the box and put them in the closet. So it's not that I don't want to play with them. I just don't really have anywhere to put them right now.
I can see the appeal for those pop figures. I personally don't collect them. I personally don't like them, but I can appreciate them. I think it's a really interesting market, how something that is effectively the same figure repeated over and over again can look so unique based on who it is. So I can see the appeal. However, in my opinion, they are just the next modern Beanie Babies. But again,
that's a good point.
that's just things aside. And
I saw
again,
something
I would never tell anyone not to collect them. Buy what you love, buy what you like, and if it makes you happy, who cares?
Exactly.
I saw something yesterday in a computer game shop, and it was ducks. Little ducks. Have you seen those, Luke? What are they? What is that all about? And they were all different ducks. So I don't know if you've seen it. There was like a Super Mario duck, and then there was like a Blanca from Street Fighter duck, and then there was like a Sonic the Hedgehog duck. I was like, what's going on with these ducks?
Yeah, I've seen them, but I don't understand it.
I was like, what's these ducks? These are all different ducks. All right. Okay. Good. So, all right, Luke. So, what's something that you think that Marvel Studios could have done differently? Now we know what Jarian's is. We won't talk about that.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay. But what's something that you feel like Marvel Studios could have done differently? It doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world, but something that you've seen with your knowledge, your background, and you've gone, do you know what? You could have just done this, and I think personally it would have been better.
So my answer to this question is actually not just one thing, it's a broad thing that they could have done throughout. They're very well known for their humor and inserting various jokes and gags throughout the moments. But sometimes those moments are real deep and powerful moments. And to make a joke at that moment, yes, it's funny. Yes, we all laugh, but they're missing out on that depth. And like what we're talking about earlier, where we're talking about how the horror side of it and the brutality could really come into play, maybe they need to ease off those jokes. You know, it worked really well with Guardians of the Galaxy. It worked really well with Thor Ragnarok, but now we're starting to see them just oddly inserted. And I don't want to get into like too graphic or too many spoilers or anything, but there was a couple of moments that were quite deep and emotional in the Black Widow movie that were just laughed off as a joke. And we didn't get to that deeper thing of it. That could have been a really powerful moment, and it was just thrown away with a joke. And then there's other times, whether it be Nick Fury losing his eye, or it could be Aunt May walking in and finding Peter in his Spider-Man outfit. You know, all these things that are really deep and have like more to them. There's more to explore, and it just gets laughed off as a joke. So it's a good thing and a bad thing, because it does make us laugh. We do enjoy it. But at the same time, when you sit and think about it, the wasted opportunities are so vast.
Yeah, I agree. I can see what you're saying. And there was one in that movie there, Ragnarok. Yeah, if everybody's listening, I've got a big poster of Ragnarok in the background. They're in the lift, and they're going in the lift, and they're acting that really. What did Loki say? I think that's when he said, "All I wanted was a brother," or something. I can't remember the dialogue, but it's happening. It's literally happening there, and I was like, "Wow!" But like, I mean, long story short, when did that come out? That must have come out. Cut 3-4 years ago, 4 years, 5 years ago, maybe
5, I think, by now.
Well, literally on the poster. Wait a minute, I'll tell you when it came out. Oh no, it just says it. No, it doesn't say a year. But anyway, it came out very close to. I've made a joke of it as well now, and this is serious. I lost my brother prematurely. He was 41, died of cancer very suddenly. So that moment for me, seeing the two brothers, you know, talking to each other, was really, really touching. And then almost instantly, it lasted about a minute, if that, maybe 30 seconds. Then there was a joke, and I was like, like I was just getting to that emotional point where this was really, you know, hitting deep. And I guess obviously for me there was other things going on as well, but I was just there, and then they went, boom, there's a joke, and I went, oh, I didn't want to laugh. I was kind of enjoying. I know it sounds weird. Enjoying.
They're trying to keep it too family friendly. They're trying to appease to that younger audience and to Disney, and so they don't want to dwell on those things too much. But for the source material, for the stories that we have, for the real life things that we can connect it to, it's such a shame that they're not brave enough to go that far. Like, they have us now. It's been 10 years. Now they again, it's having the trust in your audience, and I don't think they don't have that for us, unfortunately.
And then the whole Nick Fury thing, that was so much build up for not a really big reveal.
Yeah.
So
it was a bit sad, wasn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with, you know, actually over a couple of years we had that. Well, lots of years we had that with, you know, I lost my one good eye, you know, remember in Avengers with Coulson. Then obviously in Winter Soldier, you've got to keep your eye on the game, both eyes on the game, and you're like, oh, really looking forward to seeing this. And then obviously when we saw the trailer for Captain Marvel, it was like, there's a two-eyed Nick Fury, what's going to happen? And then, yeah, it was a bit of like, oh, is that it?
Yeah.
But that's about as far as it went. Yeah, no, I see your point, Luke. I see your point. I do see your point. They need a better balance between these emotional, hard-hitting, serious moments and the comedy. Like, we're not saying that either has to go. They just need to balance it out a little bit better. Just time it a little bit better. Cool. All right. Okay. Wicked. All right. So on the flip side of that, then, what's something that you think they've done really well?
The thing that I think they've done really well is the connection to everything. So it's not so much the connections, because you just got to put a few Easter eggs and this, that to make the connections, but it's the referencing back to something. It's, you know, I loved that in the Spider-Man films for Sony, which obviously Disney had a hand in. I loved that with the suit and everything, there was an instant kill mode, and he panicked and he was like, no. And then when he needed it in that time in Endgame, initiate instant kill. And it was like, wow, now we get to see it. Like, it was, you teased us with it earlier. He was too scared to use it, but when the time was right, there we had it. And it's those things that I really appreciate. Again, it has its bad sides, because now you feel like you need to watch everything in order to get what you're watching, and they're no longer single films that everyone can enjoy. But I do like those callbacks. I think they're really clever. I think they're really well put together.
Definitely, and that's another thing for fans to be able to keep their eye on. Yep. You know, you know, think, oh yeah. I mean, you know, talking about Black Widow, the vest was just. I mean, it still didn't click in my head until she walked on, until Natasha comes on screen in that last moment. Even when she took it off of Yelena at the end, she gave it to her. She went, you better take this, doesn't she? She walked off with it. I was like, and it was only then when she walked up, and even then she walked up to Mason, and I was like, that vest. Oh, it's the vest. But I love little moments like that. I think that's really cool. Yeah, that's great.
So I got a question here. So since you're huge on Spider-Man, what are your thoughts on Peter Parker in the MCU versus previous movies? And some of the critique that he's too much like Iron Man / Iron Boy and not as much Peter Parker.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of the whole Iron Man connection. Like, they could have done it, that's fine, but I think they're going too heavy with it. I want him just to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He doesn't need to be this Avenger going into space and all that. Like, I want to see some like on street level action. When it comes to the MCU, I love Tom Holland. I think he's a really, really cool kid. You know, he's a good actor. He plays the part really well. But for me, Peter Parker will always be Tobey Maguire. However, Spider-Man will always be Andrew Garfield. And what we have here with Tom Holland is Miles Morales. Oh. You know, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is actually more closely related to the Miles Morales story than it is to the Peter Parker at all. And so if I was putting them into those grades, if I was going to say best Spider-Man, well, Spider-Man, it's Andrew Garfield. Best Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire. Best, where does that leave Tom Holland? Well, at the moment, he's picking up that role of Miles Morales. And that does concern me a little bit moving forward, because when they do eventually, maybe decades down the line, bring in Miles Morales, we've already touched upon everything. We've already seen it all play out. And I don't know if just having a different ethnic background is going to make that truly stand out any more than it does already, because he's playing that role.
That's an interesting take. I never thought about that way, about him being more Miles Morales than Peter Parker. That's actually a really good take.
Even the best friend, like it's straight out the pages of Miles Morales.
True, yeah.
Do you think that was done on purpose? That's not a coincidence.
I think it was done on purpose. I think that was the most recent source material that they had, and they knew that that's what kids would relate to, because no kid nowadays is going to relate to a 1960s Peter Parker.
Yeah. I recently reread the sort of whole run where when Stacy dies and things like that, and yeah, I can see what you're saying. It's hard. It would be hard for a kid to relate to that person.
Yeah.
Right? Where you've only got to look at Into the Spider-Verse, and I mean, I reckon every kid can probably relate to Miles Morales in that movie. So yeah, I can see what you're saying there. While we're on the case of Spider-Man, I mean, the sort of last, not the sort of last question, but the next question I would have asked you would be, where do you think they can go, or where do you think they should go with the MCU? But I think a more pressing question, based on your passion of Spider-Man and obviously knowledge of Spider-Man, is how can they use Spider-Man going forward? And I don't just mean Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker and Tom Holland, but the whole Spider-Man thing, and then also this the Sony universe. How do you think that they might integrate that in with the MCU, or vice versa? Where do you see this the Spider-Man problem? You know, how do you see that playing out?
Well, now you're really asking. I hope you got about 5 hours.
Usually we have, yeah.
So I want to see Peter Parker grow up. Like, I want to see him get his job at the Daily Bugle, like leave school, get his job, go through the motions. If we had 10 years of Iron Man, let's have 10 years of Peter Parker and see that evolution. And then eventually, when it's all said and done and he's going to retire from crime fighting or just the actor from the movies, then we can hand it down to someone else, whether it be Miles or Gwen or someone else. I think they should be kept a long way from now, in all honesty, especially from a business point of view. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and release it all too soon. As for any big storylines, it would be great to see Secret Wars. And I've kind of got an idea on how that could play out and give us Spider-Man in the black costume. So bearing in mind, this is just my thoughts on the matter. There is nothing here whatsoever that is even remotely going to happen.
So what we say is, we say fog, fact, opinion, guess.
Right.
And then present your argument or your story or whatever as whichever it is.
There are no facts here.
This is a guess.
It's all just opinion and guesswork.
Go for it.
But I would say, like, literally have all these superheroes get sucked up to wherever they are, just get taken away to this battle planet, and include characters from the Sony universe. So we get Venom there as well, Eddie Brock Venom. And they're all over the place. No one knows quite what they're doing. But at some point in one of the early battles, we'll have Eddie Brock really badly hurt, right? Symbiote and him ripped apart. Eddie's like unconscious in a coma or whatever, and the symbiote is just discarded. We don't know if it's alive or dead. It's just out there. Then later on, we can have Peter Parker in a very similar situation, all battered and beaten up, crawling around the place. And then all of a sudden, over a rock climbs this symbiote, right? You don't even need to see him get onto, like, attach itself. Then we go through the rest of the film. No one really knows. Everyone plonked back down to earth, but Peter's got this new costume. And then meanwhile, Eddie Brock is asleep in a hospital bed in a coma still. And it will be all about Peter then getting rid of the symbiote and everything else, and it eventually making its way back to Eddie to heal him. So that's something that I would love to see. And that's how I personally would give everyone the black suit Spider-Man. But then at the same time, after seeing the latest Venom trailer and seeing Carnage, I was wondering whether or not Sony might completely turn it all on its head, and instead of bonding with the Venom symbiote, have him bonding with the Carnage symbiote, therefore making Eddie and Venom be the main hero of that story arc, having to stop a homicidal maniac that is Spider-Man / Carnage.
That would be great.
Yes.
Yeah, like completely flip it on his head. Nice. Oh,
I am team Sony, by the way. Like, I don't see them ever giving Spider-Man back, and I don't think they should. Like, so, it belongs to them.
So speaking of that and Sony, my thought's always been that Peter Parker is probably not going to be as long-lived as Tony Stark Iron Man in the MCU. I keep thinking that there's going to be a point where Sony's going to take Parker back over and to be in the Sony Spider-Verse, and that at that time, that's when we get Miles Morales in the MCU. That way they split that apart. MCU has Miles, Spider-Verse has Parker, but we see Parker pop in from time to time to mentor Miles.
That would have to be a whole new deal. That would have to be a whole new deal between the two companies, because Disney won't have any movie rights to be able to use any character within the Spider-Verse. So yes, I agree. I think they're building up this whole universe that they can just pluck Peter back in and drop him in. And I think that was a big threat to Disney at the time of those negotiations, because they had already started. And I think in an interview, they actually mentioned it. And there was like, Kevin Feige was like looking at her like all in shock. It was marvelous. But yeah, I think they can do that at any time, but equally Disney themselves can only do TV shows with spider characters, whether it be animated or otherwise. They can't do movies because those are over at Sony. So again, that would have to be a whole new deal, whether it was Miles, Gwen, or anyone else to take that position.
I wonder if they would do like a Disney Plus type of thing, then maybe
I was literally just about to say they've done that, haven't they? They've come up with some sort of deal because Homecoming and Far From Home are going to be available on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Early next year, I think. I think that's right. So they are talking. At least they are talking. Just going on, just touching on the Venom and the Spider-Man and all of that thing, and then touching on what I've recently, literally just put down 2 days ago, the story about Gore, and then there's obviously the Null link there. So Null is he's the creator of the Venom and Carnage. The symbiote.
He's the god of the symbiotes. He existed from the darkness. He's older than everything. He kills celestials for breakfast.
Right. So and now we've got Gore turning up in Love and Thunder. So I don't know. This is all new. This was new to me. So just actually, Luke. So I'm as much as I would consider myself a big Marvel fan. I have got a fairly decent knowledge of the comics. I would probably put it at a modest 6, maybe a 7. I probably wouldn't go much higher than that. But obviously a big sort of MCU fan, and I've got kind of an eye for like little details and things like that. Big movie kind of geek type thing. So my comic knowledge is probably not maybe up here, but I do see these little links here and there. So you can kind of see it, and I think
it really all depends because there's always loopholes, right? So if you take a character like Kingpin, for example, Kingpin originated in Spider-Man issue number 50, Amazing Spider-Man issue 50, which would therefore make him a Spider-Man character, Spider-Man villain, and yet Disney were allowed to use him and hire him out to Netflix and everything for Daredevil. So it's interesting to see how those certain rights work out when it comes to the movies, because if they're now going to put Daredevil and maybe Kingpin into the MCU, I'm not sure what the legality is there. And then like what you say with Gore, the whole Null thing was I can't think what the right word is, but a retcon, sorry, that's it. So it was a retcon to say that character is actually part of the whole symbiote story. Now, at the time of it being written by Marvel, which is owned by Disney, that was a Thor character in a Thor book, which is something that they own. So again, the legality there of who owns that character and whether or not he is in fact a symbiote remains to be seen between the two companies when they make their deals for the movies. Who's to say? Who knows?
Going on, just touching on that, I watched a video of yours the other day about the public domain and about Disney owning characters. So can you just briefly describe that? I mean, I know that video was like a 15-minute video, and obviously you was compacting it then as well. But can I ask you to compact that again now for our audience? Just generally speaking about characters and ownership and that kind of thing in regards to this, what you were saying in your video.
Yeah, so I came up with the idea for that video because whenever people mention characters like Thor or like Loki, they just think about the Marvel films. They think of the MCU.
These two guys,
these are characters. These are real life gods that people did worship back in the day that have existed for thousands of years. And I wanted to go through and not only mention that this is public domain and that anyone could take the original source material and create these characters that they wanted themselves, but also to explain what Disney got right and what Disney changed. So I'm not necessarily saying what they got wrong, but what they chose to change, and kind of point out to people that if you were going to write your own story, you can't base it on what you see in the MCU. And I think a lot of people in this day and age get their Norse mythology mixed up with the MCU a great deal.
Yeah, because the Norse mythology is freaky. There's some freaky stuff going on there. I mean, on our group, we've seen a lot of people talk about the horse thing, Loki turning into a horse and all of that kind of stuff. And then he was impregnated and gave birth to an 8-legged horse and all of this. I mean, there's some freaky stuff that goes on in that Norse mythology, isn't there? And I mean, it's no surprise that Disney aren't going to bring some of that over, but it just highlights the fact that, you know, these two people standing behind me in these posters, you know, Thor and Loki, this is not really what Thor and Loki, I mean, it is a little bit, but not really what it's about and where they've come from. It's like when you ask children, you know, about symbols. You know, you can show them like the Star of David and they ain't got a clue what it is, but you show them the arches, the McDonald's arches, and they're, oh, McDonald's, you know. It's a similar thing, isn't it? You know,
it's
like,
happened quite a lot with various things. So another example of this is vampires. So we all know that a vampire, you stake it, it turns to dust. And that wasn't always the way. They would like turn back into corpses or melt or, you know, transform. But the thing is like shows such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer that came out couldn't show that on television. So they needed a cleaner, more child-friendly way, as it were, to depict these dead bodies. And so they turned them to ash. And then you see films like Blade and everything else that have just adopted that over the years. So now it's become the normal thing. And so, like I say, we look at these Norse gods and we see them for what they are in superhero films. And it really does make me wonder what other religious icons we're going to see in movies down the line. Because, you know, again, we got characters like Hercules from the Greek mythology. I'm not quite sure when that line changes from something that people used to believe in and worship to, okay, now you're offending people. And I'm not sure where that line is sometimes.
Yeah, and because there's all the gods, they're all, I mean, we've got Zeus coming in, and he was, and you've got, like you said, you've got Hercules and Ares and all these other gods, obviously, Thor and Odin and Loki and Hela and all of these other people that are coming in. And I think the waters have got very muddy in regards to everyone just go, oh yeah, they're all gods. But, yeah, it's not quite as easy as that, really, is it? When you look at the source material, you know, they're all from different places, and you know, they're not as it's not just from one book.
Yeah. But, it's where do you draw the line between God or alien? I mean, if you can travel there by a spaceship, does that mean God or?
Very nice. Very nice.
Thor does both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Little bit of both. Let's quite like a little bit of both. Okay. So I mean, ultimately, let's touch just lastly then on rounding off that kind of where would you hope to see the MCU go, just in general. So just in general now, rather than focusing on the Spider-Man aspect, just in general, where would you, with your knowledge of the comics, where they've been, where they're at now, where would you kind of like to see the MCU go next? I mean, obviously we know what's happening in the short term. You know, we know we've got Secret Invasion coming up. We know we've had all of these other shows and movies that are happening. We've got the multiverse that's being probed. What are your thoughts on that?
I want to see, and it sounds really odd to say because it's a formula that's worked so well, but it's also a formula that, like I say, really does segregate the audience, because if you miss one, you're missing out. I want to see more standalone movies. I want to see a movie where you can just go and enjoy it for what it is, and you might have one or two little nods, but you don't feel like you have to see everything. And I do think this What If series is really going to help with that, because one of the greatest things about watching these movies is that we're seeing things from our childhood, from those comics, up on the big screen, stuff that we never thought that we would ever see. And I just want more of that. And the fact, like I said, that certain rights and characters didn't belong to them at the time, now that they do, show us how that could have played, you know, show us Age of Ultron, but with like Wolverine and the X-Men or whatever, you know. When I say that, I don't mean have that be the first appearance of the X-Men. Now all the books skyrocket because it's in the What If series, and then that means that they're in the MCU. Like, don't have it like that. It doesn't have to be so tightly connected. Just enjoy the ride, enjoy the way it pans out, and the X-Men will come later on. And when they do, which I, again, with the whole Miles Morales thing and pushing it further back, I think, again, keep those characters, keep that core team that everyone knows for much later on. Introduce us to other characters first. There's so many X-Men characters out there that we can have some really obscure but well-loved characters brought into the MCU decades before we have to see Wolverine or anyone else.
Go on then, give us an example. Where would you give us an obscure character, bring them in somewhere for us? Go on.
Oh, I don't know.
Put you on the spot there, haven't I?
You've really put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot.
I'm not a massive X-Men fan, but I do have a friend of mine who really is, and he'd give you like countless ones, one after another.
Nice.
I honestly don't know, but all I know is that from a financial point of view, anyway, if you don't want your audience to get fatigued, you don't want to play all your cards at once, and having those extra characters in your back pocket that you know are big sellers, they're the ones that you want to hold off and reveal later. I do like your idea of saying that certain characters could be like Mystique in disguise, but that could be a retcon in the next 5-10 years. They don't need to show that right now for that to be a thing.
I mean, they're actively retconning all the time anyway. They've been doing it for the last 5
and
6
it
years.
keeps things interesting. It does make people go back and explore those movies again. This is one of the reasons, so it's a little bit off topic, but this is one of the reasons why I don't mind reboots. A lot of people don't like things being rebooted, but one thing that it does is it makes people go back and watch those things again. And a key part here is in Endgame, where all of a sudden Thor #2, which most people don't even bother with, all of a sudden that becomes a very key movie that suddenly becomes important again. And so many people, myself included, went back to watch it after seeing Endgame.
Well, just look at another example. Look at Howard the Duck, the 80s movie. That became like popular all of a sudden again, where you got the creators and Leah Thompson pitching to Marvel a Howard the Duck reboot because of his inclusion in Guardians of the Galaxy and an Endgame. So it's another example of that.
Yeah, it's right there on Netflix at the minute.
Yeah,
sure
and then you made a good point there about the one-off stories, no connections. And I think What If is going to be a good example of that. But to expand on that, I think it's also why that Marvel is now creating a new animated studios, because I think we're going to start seeing new cartoon properties come out. And it's going to be like the old cartoons where they're just individual stories that don't really have to tie together. So you can go, like, for example, Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Avengers Assemble. You can watch those episodes, but you don't have to start with season 1, episode 1. Yes, there's a couple episodes that link together, but for the most part, you can watch them in any order. For those cartoons. So I think we're going to see more of that with them doing the whole animated studios creation.
Again, it's Disney putting their trust in the audience. I mean, this is why we ended up with Tom Holland as Spider-Man and why Andrew Garfield got fired. I do believe in my hearts of heart that Sony should have carried on with their own Spider-Man story and just let Disney do their Tom Holland and have him over there and him over there, and trust the audience to know that there aren't two Spider-Men. It's completely separate. This is one set of films and this is another. And these ones can be more adult and more, gory or brutal or whatever you want to have them. And the other side can be the family-friendly Disney content that people want to see. So it all comes down to having that trust in your audience. And I really hope they do expand on that. I think they're getting better, but we're not there yet.
So speaking of Marvel, Sony, and MCU, Sony, Garfield, Maguire, Holland, do you think No Way Home is a multiverse movie?
I would love it to be, but I don't think it has to be. I think the problem is all of us, there hasn't even been a trailer, right? That's what we spoke about earlier. But all of us have bigged it up so much in our minds. We've already made up our mind that if that is not the case, we're not going to like that movie. And I think that's really unfair to both Disney and Sony because they haven't misled us. They haven't said anything that they shouldn't. Like the information's there that they have given us. And, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to see anything. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
You're absolutely right. This is all us. Like, we are big. Everyone's like, no, Mother Ghost. But we don't know that. They haven't said that.
No.
I mean, okay, fine. We've got Alfred Molina and we've got Jamie Foxx, but I mean, I must find this article because I keep quoting this all the time, and I need to find this article so people go, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there you go." But Feige said that if they were going to bring over the Netflix characters into the MCU or the Netflix actors into the MCU, they would use Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock / Daredevil in the MCU, but it wouldn't be the Netflix Matt Murdock Daredevil. It would still be Charlie Cox and Matt Murdock Daredevil, but it wouldn't be that. And I'm like, well, I wonder whether that's to be the same with Doc Ock and Electro. And now I know that Alfred Miller or someone somewhere online, there was somebody that was heard saying that the Doc Ock story would pick up from exactly when he went into the river.
Yeah.
I know that was heard or said by somebody, but I mean, I don't know. We've picked this up so much that it's going to be a multiverse movie. That if it's not, like you said, I hope that people aren't disappointed. But
I mean, it would certainly solve their problems. Like it would solve Peter Parker's problem, as it were, of, oh yeah, I'm not Spider-Man because look, here he is standing next to me with all these powers. But at the same time, he could have a Skrull do that.
Exactly. So I've been saying, Skrull do it. Yeah,
Jarian said that.
I've been saying that. But I think it's more in the middle, right? I think the multiverse aspect of the other movies is going to be the villains only. And I think the only Spider-Man we're going to see is MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man. He may get help from somebody else in the MCU or a new character, but I don't think we're going to see the multiverse Spider-Man in this movie. I'm more in the middle.
I even think, like, the Sony movies, we have no way of knowing that even all of those are in the same universe.
Yep.
What if Venom is in, like, the Tobey Maguire universe, or Morbius is in the Andrew Garfield one? Like, and we don't know which Spider-Man they've been fighting because we haven't seen them meet that character yet. And so we don't even know, even from those trailers, even from those things that we've seen, where they sit. They might not be in this universe at all.
Yeah, the only thing I think we saw as a tie-in was Michael Keaton's Tombs in the Morbius trailer. I think that's the only thing.
But that might not be the same. That might not be the same Vulture. That might not be the same Adrian Toomes.
Yeah. So you're right.
Interesting. It will certainly be interesting to see where they go with that. Look, I think we've had a really good chat, Luke. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Yes, thank you.
We could continue to keep going all night, but you know, these people listening have probably got work to get back to or lives to get back to. So I think real quick though, I have a thought. We should, since with Luke is as big of a Spider-Man fan Luke is, we should have him on for our preview of No Way Home and our review of No Way Home. Yes. So look, what we've done, what we're going to do, what we did for Black Widow and what we will do for Shang-Chi and what we'll do for Eternals and what we'll do with No Way Home is we'll do a preview episode. It'll only be 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and we'll do that the week before.
Yep.
And then we'll do a review episode and we'll probably try and catch that 2 or 3 days after the general release. And then we'll have you on for the preview and the review if you're up for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's right up my alley.
Wicked. Great idea, Jarian. Well done. So look, just before you go, mate, tell us where these people that are listening can catch you on your channels and whatnot.
Yep. So like I said at the beginning of the show, Hydra Collectables, where we let our geek flag fly, and I'm found over on YouTube and I'm found over on Instagram. So don't miss out. Check it out.
Excellent, lovely. And obviously, everybody that's listening, you're already subscribing, you're already rating us, you're already sharing the podcast. Remember, you can get on our Instagram, on our Twitter, on our Facebook group, on our Facebook page. Sadly, Jason's not here, so he's not going to be able to read out all the exact words you've got to type in on each of those. But MCU DNT Plus, you'll find us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, Luke. Obviously, as always, thank you, Jarian. And we'll see you guys. Go on.
I got one more thing before we go. I kind of want to address something because this is kind of hot topic with me right now. Everyone in our group that listens to the podcast, I just want to thank everyone from the group. I just want to point out in our group, we have people of different backgrounds, different languages, different ethnicities, different even ages. We have young viewers. We have, young members and old members. Just remember, please be respectful and think about others in the group. That's all we ask. And that's all I have to say about that today.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Yeah. Nice. All right, guys. So thank you from me. Thank you from Luke. Thank you from Jarian. We'll see you again. Take care.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced